This is John Black, Super Chemist. Part 3 of the Grignard reaction. We're trying to make some sodium propanoate. I originally started out wanting to make propanoic acid, but I ran out of ether. And then I planned on using DCM, but I just got mixed up there and forgot to use the DCM and went with sodium propanoate. I wanted to bring up also that I don't condone anyone repeating anything in the video. It's not an instructional video. Do at your own risk. Ether is flammable, very, very flammable. Acids obviously are corrosive to your skin. Don't repeat. I'm not responsible if you repeat anything in the video and get hurt. Last video we were doing, I was using up the last part of my ether. I was dumping it into the my stuff that I had, and trying to soak out as much of the propanoic acid as I could. So it's been sitting there now for a half hour or something, and when I start on the next video here in the next clip, you'll see I started to I'm going to start to drain the last of the ether out, and then I'll have a stock of about 80 milliliters or something like that of ether there, or 100 milliliters. I don't know what I had. Last time we're going to take the water out. Now we should have all the polar stuff here that we don't care about. And to the stock, we're going to add the ether to this. We keep adding to. I don't have any more ether, so that's it. Now, I lost a clip to this, or the video or whatever, to this part, but I believe I lost the paperwork too, so I did it again on what I would do this time. If I was going to do it again, I would probably add 10 grams of sodium hydroxide, and I would have made a 20% solution with water. So a 10% solution, 10 grams would have been 90 milliliters of water and 10 grams of the sodium hydroxide. We want 20%, so we wanted half of that water. Would we just say not half of 90, 45? We'd have 45 milliliters of water and 10 grams of sodium hydroxide. Or I could have made a 10% solution. I really don't know. It really doesn't matter that much. But I would have guessed a 20% solution. While editing the last couple seconds of this video, I'm 99% sure I went with a 10% solution, because the ether was about 100 milliliters, give or take, because I had about 80 milliliters. Let's say the propanoic acid came in, made it 20, it was give or take. And with a 10% solution of the sodium hydroxide, that'd be I wanted them to kind of be even. If I went with the 20%, I really wanted to go with the 20%, okay, because it's going to react better. It's going to react faster. You know what I mean? I'm going to know for sure that it happened. But the 10% is still good. You know what I'm saying? And that way there was more water. It just felt better to me to have a 50-50 ratio of the water and the ether. So I'm pretty sure I probably got 90. And then I put in 10 grams of sodium hydroxide. Then I mixed it with the ether, right? Then I put it on a stir plate for, I don't know, an hour, whatever I say. You'll see the video clip coming up will tell you, I think. But I stirred it for at least an hour. Okay, the reason why we're putting the sodium hydroxide in, think about it. We have propanoic acid in the ether with a bunch of nonpolar impurities, right? So if we put sodium hydroxide in, or sodium bicarbonate or whatever, sodium carbonate, some kind of base, we can make the salt of that propanoic acid. Just like when you have vinegar and you put in baking soda, you make sodium ethanoate or sodium acetate, whatever you want to call it. We're going to make sodium propanoate. That's all. We're going to add some sodium hydroxide and make the salt form. Now, we know that there's no polar stuff inside that ether, right? Because we took it all out with the water, remember? So all we have is non-polar stuff in there. So if we take the propanoic acid out and we have a water level, it will go into the water level because it's now a salt. And salts are polar, right? They got a positive and a negative, cation, anion, whatever. But all the non-polar stuff should stay in the ether. All we'll be pulling out is our product, okay? Now, if I didn't run out of ether, after I get all the sodium propionate into the water, I could have acidified it again and pulled it out with some more ether, and then just boiled the ether off. And I'd be left with propanoic acid because it boils at 140 Celsius or something like that, and the ether is like 34.6 Celsius. So you just boil it off and you have your product. I ran out of ether, so we're going with sodium propanoate. The last video of this series for this Grignard, I'll go over the stoichiometry and the mistakes or the things I think I could have improved, and I'll also go over this, why I used the amount of hydrochloric acid I used, why I used, why I did certain things, or why I'm using this much sodium hydroxide. I'll get into that at the end, at the very last video of the series. Alright, it's been stirring for an hour, so I'm going to put it in the set funnel. And I'm going to put a little bit of water in here just to push it out a little bit. We're going to shake and remember to vent. Alright, I'm going to drain the lower water out. This time I'm just going to put some water in there. Now just let it sit there. This time we're going to save the water again. And I got about 40-50 milliliters of water and 2 grams of sodium hydroxide. Again, we're going to save the bottom. I'll do just one more time with a little bit of water. drain the lower water level again. Okay. Alright, well, I put it in here, the water and the sodium propanoate, and I'm filtering it through there. You can see I got my pump. It's just a hand pump. You can see up here, it's all milky. Down here, it's all clear. That's the way I want it. As you can see, I got it set up for simple distillation. It started coming over at 36 degrees Celsius, so there is some, that's the whole reason why I'm doing this, to get rid of that smell, the ether smell. Plus that's way too much water. I need to get some of that water out of there, so basically I'm just going to distill this, and I'll get back with you. Well, I put it in this, after I distilled off maybe half of the water, and there was only about 3 milliliters of ether in there. I distilled that off, distilled the water down to like 100 milliliters, and I put it in this pan, and you can see it's starting to recrystallize stuff out. There we go. Alright, so I put it in a smaller container. You can see it's mostly white, but it does have a slight tint, like when you make sodium acetate. So we'll take this, got our thrifty spatula thingy. Now, it looks solid, but it actually is kind of solid a little bit. I have to break this up some more. So I'll put that in here. I got 30 milliliters of azeotropic ethanol. I took it all the way down to minus 10 Celsius. And I'm basically going to throw it in without the pump on. Then I want to turn the pump on. There you go, they're pretty white now, pretty clean. I don't see any tint on them of brown like I did have. And have a great day. Don't miss part 4, and always remember science is great.